very serious evening with our city councilors. So these are our city councilor candidates. They're taking this whole evening very seriously, and I want you to all really, really recognize that and support that, because, you know, we really know that this is
Those are great.
Far be it for us to not take this event seriously. Thank you. With that, I would like to turn the floor over to Mary Strufert and the League of Women Voters. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Debbie. My name is Mary Strufert, and I'm on behalf of the co-sponsors this evening. I welcome you. The sponsors of the forum are the League of Women Voters and the Crime and Safety Initiative, and we thank Holy Family Church for the use of their lovely facility. I do want to announce that we have some questions already written out that we'll be asking, but we will also have time to ask some questions from the audience. So if you would like to submit a question, just raise your hand and one of our league people will bring you a card and you can write it down, and then when you've got it done, raise it and she'll pick it up. And we'll get in as many as we can. I am with the League of Women Voters, and I will be the moderator this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization. While we as the League do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties or candidates. The views expressed by the candidates tonight are their own and not those of the sponsoring organizations. We do encourage you, as we encourage our members as individuals, to become involved in your community and the political party of your choice. This forum is being recorded in its entirety and may be viewed after the forum at our website, lwv.duluth.org. At this time, I'd like to ask all League of Women Voter members who are here, if you would please stand. And so, thank you. I just want you to know that if you're at all interested in the League or you have any comments or questions about our forums that we do, anything that pertains to the League, please feel free to approach one of the people, and we would be happy to talk to you about it. It is the purpose of the sponsoring organizations to provide you with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues that are important to you face to face. There is never enough time to cover all of the issues in a limited time setting such as this. If your questions do not get addressed, we encourage you to contact the candidates directly. The format for the evening will include an opening statement from each of the candidates, questions solicited ahead of time, and then a closing statement from each of the candidates. In order to be fair, all candidates, and make the best of our use this evening, I ask that the audience refrain from applause until the very end. At this time, I would like to introduce our candidates. Down on the far end is Jackie Hallberg, and next to her, Gary Kraus. They are running in the District 4, and voters will be asked to select one of them. Next to Gary is Linda Krug, and next to her is Emily Larson, Tim Riley, and Chad Smith. And voters will be asked to choose two of these four for at-large positions. The order of speaking was determined in advance by drawing numbers, and the order of speaking will rotate after the first round of questions. Gary Kraus will answer first, then Linda, then Emily, Tim, Chad, and Jackie. We will begin the forum with a 1-minute opening statement from each of our candidates. And at this time, Gary, you can start.
Hello everyone. If you can't hear me, let me know. Sometimes I don't have the mic close enough to my mouth and I don't realize it. My name's Gary Kraus, and I'm running for the 4th District City Council seat that represents this area. And I'd like to thank everybody for being here and having an interest in the community. And I also would like to thank all the people that have supported me the last few months in this race. There's a lot of issues facing the community. There's a lot of challenges during this recessionary time, and if there's one thing I've found, it's affecting everyone at everyone's income level. As I go door to door, it doesn't matter how big the house or how small the house, everyone's struggling to get by. And I think it's really important that we all strive to work together to try to make it affordable for people to live here and get through this difficult time together. Thank you.
Linda?
Thank you. I'm going to stand because I'm short and it makes me feel taller and I think you can see me better. My name's Linda Krug and I'm running for Duluth City Council at large because I want to be a part of the team that's helping to move Duluth forward. A few weeks ago, I heard our mayor talk about how 5 years ago, everybody said we were at a crossroad. And now, 5 years later, nobody says Duluth is at a crossroads. What they say is that Duluth is on the right path. And we are on the right path, but as Gary said, we have lots of challenges ahead of us. I bring a good background. I've been a union leader at the university. I've been a professor. I've been a university administrator. I have a small business. I'm a mediator. So I believe I bring a lot to the council to help us tackle and deal with the very difficult issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Larson?
You bet. Okay, good evening. I'm Emily Larson. I'm running for Duluth City Council at large. My kids like to call it extra large. We laugh about that a lot. I'm running to bring positive, energetic leadership to the Duluth City Council. I've lived here for 20 years. I moved here from St. Paul to go to college, and like so many people, fell in love with the city, made it my home of choice. The past 10 or 15 years, our family has lived solely on operating small businesses. We provide opportunities for our employees to have a living wage. We provide health insurance. There's a lot of that small business skill set I'm excited to bring to City Council. In addition, as a parent, I'm excited to bring that long-term commitment to the city, and I'm looking forward to working with groups all over the city to learn more about what you need to best represent you and to work together to really move this city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Riley?
My name's Tim Riley, and I requested to be transferred here about 25 years ago, and we love the city when we vacationed here, just like so many people do. And I just really wanted to make a difference. I've been a member of our local Citizens Patrol for about 5 years, and just by taking some time to walk around the neighborhood, greet your neighbors, it makes quite a difference. And I want to make sure people feel welcome when they come to the city council meetings. I know that they have business on their agenda, but just a few kind words and a welcome atmosphere, I think, will make a difference for what the citizens have to contribute at the city council meetings.
Thank you. Chad Smith?
My name is Chad Smith, and I'm running for an at-large city council seat here in Duluth. A little bit about me is that I spent most of my life here. I grew up here and was born here. The only time I spent away was for the couple of years that I went to college in the Twin Cities. I graduated about a year ago, and I came back here because I love the city. Like a lot of people, I've been recently unemployed, so I very much understand how difficult the job market is right now, and that's something that's certainly going to influence my actions and my votes on the city council. I decided to jump into the race a couple of months ago, in large part because of my belief in objective decision making. You know, it's that reason that I decided to seek no endorsements of any kind. I wanted to make sure that there's a voice on the council responsive only to the voters.
Thank you. Next, Jackie, and we'll just take a minute here to get the microphone.
Yeah, yours.
Chad. We'll get the technology figured out here in a minute or two.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie Hallberg, and I was appointed to the 4th District City Council seat in January, and it has been an honor and a privilege to serve all of you these past months. And I'm running for office because I have a very deep affection for my community and for my neighbors and the people that live in Duluth, and I have an extraordinary passion to advocate on behalf of others. And I've spent a great deal of time in the last 5 years acquiring formal education to enable me to do that. It's been a very busy, productive year so far. And I really bring a specific set of skills to the council, and I bring my leadership values to my work on the council. And one of the strongest values I have is that I insist on working well with others. We don't always agree. And I really separate our disagreements about policy ideologies from the person, and really bring my value of people to the council. So thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you. During the next portion of our forum, the candidates, please hold your applause. During the next portion of our forum, the candidates will respond to questions submitted by our co-sponsors. The questions will be asked this evening were not given to the candidates in advance. You will each have 1.5 minutes to respond. The next question is, and we'll be starting with Linda. It seems the Duluth Police Department is always struggling to keep their staffing numbers up due to the city's budget issues. What are your thoughts on funding the department to ensure they can maintain and expand their community policing and crime prevention efforts?
Thank you, and really a great question, and goes to the heart of what I've talked about for the last 3.5 months, and that is how important our core city services are. And public safety is definitely the one I usually start off talking about first, our police, our fire, and our emergency services. And so I will advocate for strong core city services, and will work very hard to make sure that police, in particular, with the going to this question, are not cut. Their services are not cut. And it's always a question about how can we then raise revenue. And it's when we either have to cut things or we have to raise revenue, or we have to do some combination of that in order to keep our budgets in the black. And there are, I think, with respect to police, possibility of perhaps using some tourism tax funding that is already used right now to offset when police are at events. So that's one possibility. Other possibilities have to do with, would be like raising taxes. I'm not proposing that, but that might be something that's on the table. Sharing resources with other municipalities as a way of trying to raise more funding.
Thank you. Emily Larson?
Yes. You bet. Okay, I love this question for a couple of reasons. One is that I first met Police Chief Gordon Ramsay when he was a community police officer, and I believe so strongly in that model. I actually met with him several months back to talk about his vision for police and for safety, and it includes coming back to that model and fully staffing. I believe so strongly that that community policing model is something that is a preventative effort in all of our communities. Certainly there are certain things citizens can do, like the neighborhood crime watch systems that we have. That's important and that's great. As a city, we need to support it. However, we need our police because they are the ones who are equipped to take things to the next level as we need them. I absolutely support an adequate staffing of police. I'm excited to build our police capacity as much as possible. I agree with Linda. There are going to be some really interesting ways I think we can look at how we fund that. I know there are some grants we can access. I believe really strongly that we can work with our municipal neighbors to look at some ways that we can work together for safety. However, that core service has to be Duluth-based. We have to have community police officers in our neighborhood working with neighbors and being very, very proactive about not just identifying problematic behaviors now and blighted properties now, but being very proactive on what we do to kind of harness, you know, moving forward and making sure that our neighborhoods are safe, our kids are safe, and all of those pieces. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Riley?
At one of the citizen patrol meetings that we had, one of the local police officers came there and had mentioned how the staff had already been cut and that they weren't going to replace those people. And from the beginning, I've always said that the essential services of the police department is a priority, and I haven't heard anything that they're planning on cutting anymore. I think that they've already reduced the number of police that they were going to. The city of Duluth doesn't have quite as large of a population as it did when it was 100,000, and I'd like to see the population of Duluth, you know, keep increasing, and with that, I think that there will be a demand for more police at that time. And with some of the plans that are in the works, there's a very good possibility our population will increase and we will require more police.
Thank you. Chad Smith?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think community policing is a great thing. It's without a doubt one of the best ways that we can help curb some crime issues before they actually become an issue. I don't think there's any question that I think we all agree that public safety, especially the police force, is a core service that needs to be maintained here in the city. You know, that's 100%. I certainly would not advocate for cutting that. As far as expanding it, if we can find some creative ways to do that, I think we've heard a few interesting ways to do that by combining services here with other communities. I wouldn't necessarily support an additional tax increase for it. So if we can come up with some very creative ways in the next couple of years to expand this, I would certainly support those.
Thank you. Next is Jackie Hallberg.
Yeah, I love this question as well. Quite frankly, the bottom line is that we need to spend money on our core services. Police is one of them. Police, fire, infrastructure are three of my top priorities. And quite frankly, I have a law enforcement background. I used to work for the Department of Corrections, and I also work for a sheriff's department in southern Minnesota. And it costs money for these services. And currently, we do have a proposed increase for the budget for the police department. It is desperately needed, and I will be supporting it. Much of that increase is going to go to investigations, and we've desperately needed this increase for a long time. Our investigative staff are backed up about 6 months right now on investigating property crimes, et cetera, and they're really bogged down. We do need to get creative about how we fund things. Number one, we need to make it our priority. Number two, for example, in Lincoln Park here, we have fabulous Citizens Patrol. We have fabulous Citizens Patrol. And they pick up a lot of slack for our patrol officers that are out on the streets. And I am very open to expanding the scope of their responsibilities and helping our officers to kind of take some of the pressure off of them so that they can spend their time really effectively. And so I will definitely be supporting the increase in the budget for the police department. We have to spend money on what we value.
Thank you. Gary Kraus.
Thank you. I believe that police are one of our core primary services that everyone uses, especially in difficult times because a lot of tensions face families as they're struggling and police have to respond to more things. There are a number of things. One is increase our tax base by actually producing industry in the area that employs people with a good income. Brings more money in, creates more money for police. Another thing is tourism. You know, downtown, as an example, we have a lot of tourists on the lake walk and stuff. We can use legally a lot of money from tourism money if we so choose to fund police officers in one specific area, which frees up money for police officers in other specific areas. When you just look at tourism, the #1 retail place isn't downtown. The #3 retail place isn't downtown, but almost all the money goes downtown. I don't believe that's right. We can pursue grants. We can do many different things. Partnerships better. How many of you knew that the Superior Police Department is the Marine Intervention Service? They go and train to go on ships if a terrorist activity occurs. Those type of things. Partnership, we don't have to replicate other things. Another thing is our patrol officers. I've gone to 6 years of neighborhood meetings with the police and other things, graduated from their academies. And what I found is that it's always the community liaison officer, the personal person that's out there. How many of you get to sit down with the patrol officer that goes through your street and develop a relationship with the actual frontline police?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on to our next question. What is the single most important issue facing the 4th District, and what would you do to address it? And we will start with Emily Larson.
So I've been door knocking since April. It's been a treat to be in your neighborhood, to be in neighborhoods all over the city, asking people on their doors what's important to you. The thing that I have heard over and over again in your district is safety, public safety. And I do feel like we covered that a little bit, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. Excuse me, the other thing that I've heard a lot of are streets and roads and construction, not just traffic and how traffic, there's some concern about how traffic is flowing, especially up in the heights, but also the condition of our roads, the amount of traffic that's going kind of around your whole district. So those are some of the concerns that I've heard. I think the city's doing a really fine job in moving ahead in the street improvement program. I think there's going to be some growing pains with implementing complete streets. I think it's the right model and the right program for our city. And the last thing that I've heard a lot of hope about in your district, actually, and I want you to know about, is Harrison. It's a beautiful park. It has a wonderful history in this neighborhood. It is so used and utilized. And so I also hear a lot of people holding up what they love about their neighborhood. It's that park, it's Lincoln Park, it's the hiking trail, it's the closeness to your amenities, to the mall, to downtown, to West Duluth. So I do hear concerns. I also hear an incredible amount of optimism and hope in your district. Thanks.
Thank you. Tim?
From going around knocking at doors, I hear a lot of concern about the job situation. And just from talking with people, they just seem like Duluth isn't producing a lot of jobs that are higher paying, and I hear it from not only the parents but their students. So to attract industry to the city of Duluth, we really need to have some incentives for different companies to relocate here, and with the rail that we have going through here, I can really see the possibilities of having a foundry, not just the one that's way out west there in Gary, New Duluth, but other types of manufacturing done with steel. And we have resources running through here through shipping and through rail that really can be tapped, and we just need to have some partnerships with some industry people so that we can have those businesses move here.
Thank you. Chad?
One of the things that I hear the most about is money and people's ability to afford to live. Yeah, I hear so many people who are just barely making ends meet as it is. Many of them are already working full-time, and it's still very, very difficult right now. And one of the things I hear a lot of frustration with is that taxes continue to increase from all levels of government, including here locally. I think as a city, we need to recognize that a lot of people are facing a lot of challenges right now, and we need to keep them in mind when we talk about budgeting issues here in the city. I would certainly advocate not making it more difficult for people living here. I would think if we can find a way to trim the budget enough where we can limit tax increases and make it just a little bit easier on the people who are already struggling here in Duluth.
Thank you. Next is Jackie.
Thank you. Well, as I've talked to folks all over the 4th District this year and during the process of the campaign, I hear also that folks really want their neighborhoods to be safe. I will say that the hope in that is that I am so proud of folks in the 4th District because people in this community are so proactive and involved in their community, and they really watch out for each other, and they've really gotten engaged and taken responsibility for their neighborhoods and their own safety. And I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more openness and communication with the police department in our efforts to keep each other safe. I've also heard streets, streets, streets. And I have consistently voted for funding for street repairs this year, and I will continue to support the street improvement program. And we need to prioritize those projects very carefully. I just had an opportunity to talk to the mayor yesterday about the Joshua Avenue project, and hopefully we'll be able to get some movement on that. And also jobs. We've talked about jobs. You know, nearly half of Duluthians are living at 200% of the poverty line or below. And that's not a whole lot of money. In a family of 2, that's $29,000 a year. We need to do everything we can to promote economic development, to support development projects that make sense in our community and bring jobs.
Thank you.
Gary?
The court doesn't want to play.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I've heard a number of things that are important to people, especially during these times. One is the challenges the families are going through. They're really struggling, and it's getting more and more and more expensive to live in this city. The number one thing I hear from everyone is their family and their pocketbook, whether they're a renter or a homeowner, regardless of how big or small their home is or their piece of property. Prioritize, truly prioritize, and cut back on the increased fees and expenses being placed on you during this recession. That is the number one thing anyone says. My pocketbook, my family. Reduce costs to live here, or at least hold the line, at least during this point in time. That is every family, working family or non-working family. Spend money wisely. Quit spending money on the stuff I'm watching on TV. It tires me. I need to feed my family. That is prevalent. Repair our roads, address traffic issues in our areas. Community centers are important. We're investing in places that tourists travel to. Yes, it brings money to town. When Harrison was going away, at-large Councilor Stauber and me used leverage with the mayor and said we would not vote for something that he needed the money for until he agreed to rebuild Harrison, and it happened. And it only happened because of 2 votes on the council behind the scenes. Sorry, behind the scenes.
Linda?
As I've been out doing door knocking all over in the 4th, I would say that the main issue is public safety, and I've heard it in 3 different ways. I've heard concerns about group homes. Knocked on several doors. One woman said, my mailbox is across the street, and I am afraid to go across the street to get my mailbox because there are these people who stare at me, and I don't like it. It unnerves me. And so some concerns about all of a sudden a family moved out and a group home moved in, and some issues with that. So I say public safety. Empty storefronts. It's a safety issue because it creates an opportunity for vandals and those sorts of things. So a concern with safety because of empty storefronts, and also foreclosed homes, empty homes in neighborhoods that raccoons take up residence in, or also is a target for vandals. Again, makes me say that safety is what I hear people talking about in the 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll be starting with Tim Riley. Yes. Our next question. What would you do to make Duluth a city that is more open to diversity? Diversity as defined by race, gender, ethnicity, and sexual orientation.
I really think that there is a healthy attitude towards diversity in the city of Duluth. I haven't seen anybody that has been racially slurred or criticized. I think that the people in our community, that's part of the wonderful thing about people in our community, is I think that they do have an openness. I did, while I was a student senator at Lake Superior College, I did propose the charter for the gay, lesbian, transgender club there, and they did accept that club when it was chartered. And I am all for human rights of people, and I think that living in a community like we do, I'm just happy to be part of this community, because I don't think I've seen people criticize people in a manner to downgrade them so that they aren't really in society being functional people, as we all are.
Thank you. Chad?
Okay, thanks for the question. And this is one of the most important things to me. I am very supportive of making Duluth as open and accepting and welcoming as possible of all people, regardless of your differences. You know, this fall, I had the privilege of being the only non-DFL endorsed candidate to have a booth at Pride at Bayfront, and I had a fantastic time there, learning from everybody there and understanding that it seems like we're getting better in this area, but we always have to remember there is still room to improve. One of the best ways we can do that as elected officials would be to attend these events. You know, unfortunately, there are some councilors who completely shun that event and would probably rather see it not even happen. We need to be there and learn what their experiences are in this city and see how we can improve that for the better.
Thank you. Next is Jackie.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great question. I think a good place to start is first to acknowledge that we do have racial and ethnic and gender inequalities built into our institutions and our public systems. We need to have frank, honest, open conversations about that and be honest about it. I can't remember the specific name of the survey, but there was a survey result that came out recently that said Duluth really needs to learn how to be a more open community. And I think one of the ways that we can do this is to really embrace and support community events that highlight the beauty of other cultures and acknowledge, you know, and the value of other points of view. We need to be doing those things. I know I do that as an individual. Pride Weekend is one of my favorite weekends of the summer for many reasons, but we need to do that. We need to take individual responsibility to learn about people who are different from us, and it's okay to acknowledge that we have differences, but we need to embrace the beauty of people who are different than us, and in order for us to be a more open community. Last night, I just want want to add real quickly, last night my son invited me to a great techno dance event that he was a part of down at Grandma's, and to see 500 young people dancing into music that I don't particularly care for. I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jackie. Gary, please.
During my time when I was on the school board and also on the city council, we adopted the rules of civility. And I kind of believe that you lead by example. You treat people the way you would like to be treated and treat people with respect and honor. And I think that's real important. To be a diverse community, you also have to provide opportunity for diversity. When you're a struggling community, there's a lot less opportunity. Your passion may be the arts. If people can't afford to buy the arts don't thrive. There's many forms of diversity. It isn't necessarily race or culture or orientation. It's every type. Each person in this room is their own diverse individual. I don't know how many of you are original Duluthians, but I've been working with other communities in the recent years on a sense of place. The challenge with that is we all come from somewhere different and have a very different sense of place. When you survey people in a community that are born and grew up in an area, that's their sense of place. You transplant them in New York, they don't have their sense of place. When you come from somewhere else, most often you don't feel welcome in every community, including a small community in southern Wisconsin, because it's different than what you grew up in. You can only welcome people, be open and inviting, and treat everyone equally, and hopefully in time they'll come to feel comfortable with the community that they live in. And I just believe honor people for who they are and treat them as you'd like to be treated, and show leadership by doing that.
Thank you very much. Linda?
Thank you. What a wonderful question, and a question that I've been struggling with because I've been working on my local view for the Duluth News Tribune, and this is exactly what I'm writing on, and that is about how we can be a more open and welcoming community to all people. And I came at this in part because of a study that was done that Jackie referred to by the Knight Foundation, was recently talked about, and what they found is that the more people feel as if they belong to a community, the more attached they are, the more economically prosperous their communities are. So the more attached you feel, I'll say it that way, the more the local GDP was higher. And the Knight community looked at 26 different communities, including Duluth. So not only is it the right thing to do to try to make people feel more welcomed in the community, but there's an economic benefit to it. As a city councilor, you can expect that I will do everything I can to reach out and reach across, to attend events, to invite people in, to figure out how we can have more neighborhood night type events and invite people to them. We have a lot of people here moving us forward, and if we don't have everybody with an oar in the water paddling, then we're at a loss.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Emily?
Yes. Okay, I like this question too. I think I like all the questions a lot so far. This is a really, really important question. I see the challenges that we have as a city moving in two directions. The first is a financial set of challenges. We've talked about that a little bit. That includes diminishing local government aid and all sorts of other things. And then I also see this this challenge of human capital, actually, and the way that we grow our community in a way that feels good and safe and appropriate and wonderful. And I really think we have some growing to do in this area. I've seen friends, colleagues, neighbors, allies be hurt by people's words, by people's actions. I'm not okay with that. We've made choices as a family about how we move around those issues, and there are a lot of values we instill in our own kids through our actions, through our participation in things. And I think that there are two things that a city councilor can do. The city councilor can do something that I think is actually kind of passive, which is going to things. I think it's great to go to things. I will continue to support events like Pride and all sorts of other things. However, There are also very proactive and tangible things a city councilor can do. We have a human rights commission. We have different initiatives that will come up before the council, and we can actually build into the institution of our city a sense of welcome, a set of policies that ensure that all of our citizens are protected and valued. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, I just want to remind the audience that you can submit a question, and if you would like to do that and need a card to write your question on, just raise your hand, and Rosemary will give you a card, and then she'll also collect it when you're done. You can just hold it up and she will pick it up. So, our next question, at-large candidates, since you represent the entire city, how would you work specifically with the 4th District councilors? And 4th District councilors, how would you interact with the at-large councilors so that your specific issues will be addressed? And we start with Chad.
Yep. Thank you very much. You know, there's no question that we all have to find a way to work together, and that starts by listening to each other. You know, we all live in different neighborhoods here in Duluth, so we all know a little bit about different places. We have to be able to listen to the 4th District councilors and make sure we understand their concerns from their point of view, and hopefully we can find a way to work with them. And in the same respect, I'm sure they'll do the same with the at-large councilors.
Thank you. Next is Jackie.
This is a great question because there is definitely a difference between being a district councilor and an at-large councilor. Number one, as the current 4th District City Councilor, I'm one of 9. And we don't always agree on things, number one. And I think it's really important, and I believe I said it in my opening statement, it's really important that we separate personality and political ideologies. It's critical in order to get the work done. The people of Duluth expect us to work together productively to get the work done. And so district councilors have to work with at-large councilors, and district councilors tend to deal with more real specific issues. I get a lot of calls about potholes and safety hazards on streets and specific permitting issues, a wide variety of very specific issues from residents that I work with them on to find solutions to their problems. And also, I consult with at-large councilors to get their perspective on things. I know just last night, or Tuesday night, there was a meeting at Harrison that I couldn't attend, and so I asked a couple of the at-large councilors if they could possibly attend in my stead, because it's really important that the city have representation. So openness and communication and working together.
Thank you. Gary?
Working together is very important. When I chose not to run for re-election in the past to further my education, it's one thing the mayor and others acknowledged from the council, that I never stayed focused on ideologies, and I always transitioned from issue to issue. We could disagree on one issue and agree on another. I never held grudges, and I always moved forward one item at a time. I think that's a very important skill to have. You have to work with other people. You can't always agree on things. We also represent a broad, different area. In this particular area, a big issue a while back, a few years ago, was the people that let the Field of Dreams happen in their yards, and there was high unkept grass. It wasn't nice gardens. It was unmaintained. Certain other councilors didn't experience that anywhere. We didn't have the same vote, and we moved on from there. It's important to work with everyone. And a district councilor doesn't just work in the district. Sometimes you're over in other districts working. I've helped people from one end of town to the other on their issues, because when you get a call, you're elected to represent everybody. And you try to transition from issue to issue, and hopefully other councilors will support some things. I never will this for that type of stuff. It isn't, the one time was Harrison. That's probably the only time in my career that I've ever done that, because you really have to view each issue one item at a time and move on, because you have to work with people.
Thank you. Linda?
And I would echo what we've heard so far up here, and that is that you have to collaborate. This is a huge city, 30 miles long, 5 miles wide, and so all of the councilors, all 9 of us, will be working together together is the key to move the city forward. I will rely on the 4th city councilor, 4th district councilor, I'm having trouble tonight, 4th district councilor to fill me in, if I get to the council, fill me in on the issues, because they will have in-depth knowledge of what's going on in the 4th district, and I might not have that same kind of in-depth knowledge. At the same time, I would want the 4th District Councilor to work with me to get an understanding and an overview of what's happening in all of the other districts. And I suppose I would use this analogy. I was Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at UMD for 11 years, and there are 5 colleges. And I was focused on my college most of the time, but I'm also part of the University of Minnesota Duluth, and so I had to work quite often with all of the other colleges as we worked to move forward, and I would do the same thing as a at-large city councilor.
Thank you. Emily?
Yes, I like this one too. The structure of the Duluth City Council is actually very unique. The fact that we have 9 city councilors, 4 of which are at-large, that's very unusual. Typically, if there is a city that has a city council with at-large representation, it's maybe 1 or 2 city councilors. So I actually find this makeup of the city council very exciting, and I think it's to all of our benefits, because we all truly have 5 people representing us at any given time, the 4 at-large councilors and your 1 district councilor, in addition to working together. I appreciate and love what Jackie said. You are 1 person of 9 when you're seated on a counselor, seated on the council. And I firmly believe that decisions are always, always better when you make them together. When you take the time to listen, to reach out. I agree that there are always going to be issues that are very specific to a particular district, given different activities happening at the time and the way that different policies trickle down to a neighborhood. So it's really important that we have both specialists and generalists on the council. I'm excited about what a generalist approach is to city government, what it means to be an at-large councilor. I'll bring the same skills to the council that I do currently in my day job as a consultant to nonprofits. What I do is work with people. I develop plans, I develop strategies, all of those things. You don't do it alone, you do it better when you do it together.
Thank you. Tim.
When an issue would come to my attention, and it would be particular to the 4th district, then I would want to make the counselor in that district aware of it. A lot of times, I think that the citizens know that the at-large candidates cover the whole city, so they might send something that also the district representative would receive too. But it's a good idea to confirm that, because then you can make them aware of that issue at that time. I really enjoy working with people, and I think that sometimes there's a difficult issue that maybe needs to be articulated, and sometimes maybe it would be important to actually talk to them personally instead of a phone call or transferring an email to them. And I think that with the structure of the city council, the existing structure, there is a framework there for people to work together, and just with honest communication, I can see that a lot of collaboration and cooperation can occur.
Thank you. Next, we will be starting with Gary. And the question is, what measures would you take to promote economic development in the Lincoln Park Business District?
There's been a number of them. One of the challenges is the storefront loan during my time, and it still is a challenge because the city really didn't change the model. There were so many hooks with the storefront loan that it was not manageable or affordable for many Lincoln Park districts to do that. You want to just do the face of your store, but oh, by the way, you got to change the plumbing drain on the back end of the building. And that was real detrimental, and I went around and around with the city administration and unfortunately was not able to get that changed because I was your district rep, and that issue didn't face enough of the other district counselors, and I would talk with them and advocate with them. But some of the things is I find there's often a big disconnect at attending a million Harrison meetings where you'd have a rep from the business community from Lincoln Park there, but not many business owners there. They live in Hermantown, they live in Lakeside, they live all over but in Lincoln Park. And I think there's a need for strong advocacy of getting the business owners to show up not at lunch hour to their monthly meeting down at the restaurant, but to show up in the neighborhood meetings and develop a relationship with the residents of Lincoln Park. So that what goes on in the neighborhoods that we would talk about on your streets was tied to them, and they had a better understanding of there's more to the world than just repaving that one stretch of road. We got to build, and I'm going to work to build the relationship and try to get them at the neighborhood meetings, working with the residents in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Linda?
I'd agree with Gary. It is about getting the right people at the table and having a good, open discussion about how we need to move forward. I mentioned earlier about making us a more welcoming community because there is an economic payoff, and that will apply not just to the city as a whole, but I think to the Lincoln Park area as well. Having strong core infrastructure, again, things that seem kind of broad, but when it comes right down to it, they have lots of application to the Lincoln Park neighborhood. You know, when I drive through here, I see the empty storefronts, and I think, my goodness, why can't we just get somebody in there so that it looked like someone was home, and it wouldn't be a safety and security issue, and would provide more vibrancy. This is one of the places where I've said to Jackie, I need to have a discussion with you. Why aren't we moving forward with that? And it's clear to me we don't have the right people at the table, and I'd work with the 4th City Councilor to make sure that that happened.
Thank you. Emily?
Yes. So I love, surprisingly, the 4th district, business district, and I love it. One of my hopes and one of my visions is how can we build up commercial corridors in the neighborhoods. It's a beautiful district, and I think we can do a couple of things. One is to be really honest about some of the mistakes I think the city has made. As much as I love that Michigan bypass, you've just taken all of that traffic out of what is that commercial corridor. You have some really incredible entrepreneurs in that neighborhood who love being there. I've talked with 3 of them. They absolutely cannot get over the gem that is Lincoln Park Business District. You're literally smack dab in the middle of the city. You're right off the highway. There's so much to enjoy about that. There's also some really important smaller things that aren't so small in the reality. It includes great lighting, it includes great landscaping, it includes sidewalks that aren't right on this busy street that's now just a thoroughfare. So I think part of it is working with the people who are excited to be here, who have a ton of ideas, being really clear on what some of our assets are, and it certainly includes Heritage and Clyde, it certainly includes some of the other stuff, and then I think being really creative, looking at other cities, how they've revitalized their commercial corridors. But I love that one. I get really, really optimistic when I see it.
Thank you. Tim?
I do travel through this district quite a bit in my day job, and I do see the empty storefronts, and I also see what was done with the roads and how they build these boulevards, and it looks real nice. One thing, it does slow down the traffic quite a bit because of the stop signs running through the area, and someone had mentioned that, well, the Michigan Street thoroughfare, that just helps people bypass it. So there are some infrastructure things that are kind of drawing traffic away from that street. And I know of some business people that are located near 21st, and what I've heard is they say they love being here. And for a lot of good reasons. There's a nice community here, and a lot of people take advantage of some of the services that they provide. And I can see that with a little bit of change in the way the traffic flows through here would make a big difference for attracting businesses.
Thank you. Chad?
Well, there are definitely a lot of positives in this neighborhood that we certainly need to accentuate. In addition to that, we're lucky to have such a great business group here in the Lincoln Park area, and we should open up even more communication with them and understand what they need to help develop their businesses and develop businesses like theirs in the neighborhood. Like I heard someone else mention just a couple of minutes ago, we need to be in touch, though, with all the business owners. Not necessarily everyone is so involved, but if we can find a way to get a hold of all of them and learn the perspective of all the business owners and everybody who may be interested in that sort of a thing, we need to understand what they need to grow their businesses and start them here in the 4th District.
Thank you. Jackie?
Thanks. Well, here's my opportunity to do an advertisement for how much I love Lincoln Park Business District. I love this neighborhood. There is so much potential. There's great things going on currently, and there's huge potential to make that business district thrive. One of them, it's interesting that you asked this question. I'm currently working on this very thing. One of the things that I've seen is that there have been initiatives to breathe some new life into our business district. There have been entities that we've consulted with and have offered help. One of the things that I think is critical to making something really effective is getting the stakeholders, the business owners themselves, at the table. They know best what they need to survive and thrive. And so I think that's a key piece of seeing some revitalization in the Lincoln Park Business District. I also think that long-term planning is critical. We can't be short-sighted. I think it's important for us to come together and develop a vision of what we want to see this business district as. Lots of potential. I have a little emblem that I was given from a friend. It's the heart of Duluth. We are in the heart of Duluth in Lincoln Park. You can get anywhere you need to go in 5 minutes. We have a little bit of everything here. We've got furniture, grocery, we've all kinds of things. So the potential is huge, and the long-term planning is critical.
Thank you.
We need to get to the table.
Thank you very much. Next, we are going to go to the questions that have been written by the audience, and we'll start with Linda. And you get 1 minute for these. We have 4 really good questions, so I'd like to, I'm going to shorten the time, and I know that's difficult, but if, I'll just say again that if, you'd like to know more than what they can possibly say in 1 minute, I strongly encourage you to talk to them tonight or contact them later. I'm sure you would all welcome a longer discussion on these important issues. So, next, what are your thoughts on the synthetic drugs being sold at the last place on earth?
And I only have a minute?
And you have a minute.
It's way too bad that they're legal. I'm not 100% sure that they are. I think it's a problem I can remember a lot of people have said, oh, we've got to legalize marijuana, and I think here you see the problem with it, and because it's created a lot of problems for the people who are downtown, Sheldon in particular. Their customers don't want to come in because of some of the problems, and I think that there are a lot of great minds working on how to deal with the problem from a variety of perspectives, and I think that the owner should contribute a portion of his profits to helping to deal with the problem that he's creating.
Thank you. Emily?
I office downtown, a block from Last Place on Earth. I've seen that line. I see it every single day. I see families. I see young people. I see professionals. It is a very wild place. It's a wild thing to see that line. I've seen what it's doing in Lake Place Park. I know that the police are on this. I know that Duluth is being watched nationally, and it's very hard to watch this problem unravel. Part of it is, in order to address the problem, it has to unravel enough to a point that we can get our hands on it. These materials are changing chemistry all of the time, and I actually do know that our attorney's office and our police department are actually working on some strategies. I'm going to let them lead, and I'm going to let them tell me more about what's going to happen with that, because they're on the front lines of it. Again, this is where community policing makes such a difference. We need to have officers. They can't be in the store, if it's legal, they can't be in the store preventing that, but they can be in the parks, they can be on the streets, and they can be making sure that kids and families are safe.
Thank you. Tim?
Well, we probably are all aware that this can be fatal, and that they're even questioning that it should be sold. It's really difficult to believe that people want to put up with something that can cause death. And the chemicals in the product are supposed to be listed on the package, and just the way things work, you know that somewhere, somehow, someone wants to get around that. So the question that what's in there actually is in there probably is not the case.
Thank you. Chad?
My thoughts on this issue have evolved quite a bit as this has played out. In general, I tend to believe that adults should be able to make their own decisions of what they put in their body. However, in this situation, I have to deviate from that. And part of my biggest frustration is probably the way the owner of that business downtown is going about this. I don't want to plug the name of the business. He might put my yard sign in his window. But, he knows he's feeding people's addictions, and he knows it's creating problems here in the city, and he just doesn't care. That's probably one of, it's hurting that neighborhood, and it just needs to end.
Thank you. Jackie is next.
This issue saddens and angers me. I know we can't infringe on people's civil liberties, but this is what I see. I have a friend that works in the ER at St. Luke's, and he gave me statistics about the fallout from these illegal drugs. In 1 month, 120 patients were seen in the ER at St. Luke's. Direct result of using either synthetic marijuana or bath salts. Most of the patients, it produces symptoms that require the use of respirators, so the average cost of those ER visits are between $10,000 and $12,000. You do the math. 120 incidents in 1 month at $10,000 to $12,000 a piece. Not to mention what it's doing to our young people and to our families. It's destructive, and I'm trusting in our police department and our city's attorney's office to take care of this. They are working on it, and they'll take care of it.
Thank you. Gary?
It's a multifaceted issue The tragedy, the personal tragedy that happens to the individuals that are doing it is the first part. Another part is the feel of our community. Do we want that on the front page of a section of news? I went to a board meeting for the Alumni Association at Lake Superior College, and before our meeting started, that was their discussion, the shame that their institution was linked to that in that article. Well, I'm a student at so-and-so. Do we want that in the news? Maybe the community should share with the news. We don't want that on the front of our news. We talk about an inviting, welcoming community. How would you feel walking down the street if you're a senior citizen and there's a group smoking up there? I bet you it's a culture of fear. It's nothing we want in Duluth. Maybe we as citizens should send that message to that owner of that business. You know, we have civil rights to speak up and voice our opinions about a business just like anyone else. We should have the city lobbying with the state to put an end to this right in this state.
Thank you. Next we will be starting with Emily. And this question, again, you will have 1 minute. Okay. Explain what you feel is appropriate growth for our community. What makes a community sustainable?
Has my time started yet? I have to think. I'm thinking because sustainability is a tough word. So what is smart growth for our community is, I think, part of it. Smart growth is
appropriate growth.
Appropriate growth includes growing our population, growing our tax base, growing businesses, and one of my interests and one of my passions is working with small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and what can we do to actually help them get to that next level. I think we spend a lot of time, a lot of resources courting large businesses. I think there will always be value in doing that. I think we do a great job of it as a city. I think we have a gap on how we're growing business, and growing business locally is growing jobs locally. So to me, there's a sustainability we build into our economy by making sure that businesses that are already here, rooted here, want to be here, go to the next level. And if you can make them all green businesses, great. Maybe that answers the sustainability question, but yeah.
Thank you.
Hard to know what all the questions mean.
Yeah. You can just interpret it the way you want. Tim.
Well, for the appropriate growth in the community, I really think that we need to have a partnership with our schools and to know that they're getting proper nutrition to the children in the schools, that they, even though we're not part of the school district, I think that paying attention to what is happening in our schools is an important thing, especially when it comes to seeing these young people grow up, go to high school here, perhaps stay and go to college here. If we don't pay attention, this very problem, that the question that appeared before this about the synthetic marijuana, that's another thing that just becomes, that's one of the problems of not communicating.
Thank you. Thank you. Chad.
Okay, I'm going to split this up into two different sections. I'll start with the appropriate growth. I'm a huge supporter of growing the private sector, more jobs in the private sector, and growing businesses and expanding businesses means we can increase the tax base. That brings more revenue to the city without having to raise taxes, and it makes it more livable for the citizens. Now, as far as sustainability goes, it's pretty broad, but in my mind, when I think of sustainability, one of the things that I think of is different modes of transportation besides driving. You know, we need to make sure that our streets are safe for both pedestrians and bikes, buses, cars as well. Sidewalks are a huge thing. I like the idea of complete streets, but at the very least, we need sidewalks on our streets. You know, if you don't have that, you're left to walk in the street, and then you're at the mercy of some yutz driving with a cell phone. So I would certainly make sure it's a public safety issue.
Thank you. Jackie.
Growth is a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. Economic development, growing our population, expanding that tax base so we don't have to raise taxes in order to pay for the things that we need. Fabulous. I think part of it being appropriate is making sure that we have infrastructure in place that supports that growth. We saw a really blatant example of inappropriate growth in Las Vegas, Nevada a few years back. They had such a surge in population that their school system was completely overwhelmed. The service level decreased. It was an abomination with what happened with their school system because of the growth. They weren't prepared. They didn't have the infrastructure in place. And that infrastructure includes streets and public transportation and water and sewer systems to support that growth. And so long-term planning is critical, and making sure that growth is appropriate. Planning ahead of time always makes things more appropriate and healthy.
Thank you. Gary.
If I remember correctly, what is the appropriate growth? What's sustainable? Is that what the question was?
Appropriate growth and what makes a community sustainable?
A thriving community. Next time you drive down the main street of St. Cloud, look at all the restaurant chains. Ask why. Because they've developed jobs that export products and bring new money to the community and create jobs and opportunities for families to live there and be successful and have extra money beside paying for their heat and food. Working towards that, when you look at our domestic export product, or what Duluth puts out compared to back in diamond tool days, we don't bring new money to town anymore. And when there isn't no new money coming in town, we're just passing dollars between us. We have to develop industry here, industry that creates jobs, that makes something, ships it off somewhere in the world, and brings new money into the town for families to live on, and support our local businesses that are here so that we can thrive and grow. It's only sustainable if we actually do something. Look at what's happened to our economy.
Thank you. Linda?
Well, I'm smiling because I'm imagining that it's about 2035, and there are just shy of 100,000 people in Duluth. All of the businesses, all of the storefronts in Lincoln Park are full, are filled. There are people on the sidewalk going in and out of the businesses. There are some cars, but there are lots of people walking and biking and pushing strollers and those sorts of things. And it's a good community all across the city of Duluth, and we have the infrastructure to support what's going on. And in fact, the only thing that we're talking about is where, oh where will we build the third high school?
Thank you. Okay. One more question. We have time for one more question, and we'll be starting with Tim Riley. Yeah. And the question is, would you support a charge of some sort on those who work in Duluth and use taxpayer-supported services but live outside the city, such as libraries?
That is a really good question. The thing is I think that it would be great if we could collect a charge from people that take advantage of services like the libraries. That would be wonderful, but I'm not sure that is feasible, that it could really happen. What I look at more is another area, like perhaps down on Canal Park, where they take advantage of the slip bridge and maybe have some sort of fun thing to do with that, to say it's a toll bridge, and with the steps that it saves, that would make more sense than trying to collect money from people that would want to check out a book that live outside of the city of Duluth.
Thank you. Chad.
Okay, thanks for the question. Yeah, I'm in agreement with Tim there. I also I just don't think I could support that. In general, I'm not a fan of additional taxes at this time or additional fees. I think whether you're living in Duluth or whether you're living just outside of Duluth, you know, everybody is struggling right now, and I'm just not convinced that this is the time to add an additional burden to families in Duluth or just outside of it.
Thank you. Jackie will be next.
Well, the fact of the matter is that Duluth is a regional center. And that means that we do provide services like libraries and parks and recreation to many people who do not live within our taxing jurisdiction. Nearly 30% of our library users here in Duluth do not live within city limits. And so I think the responsible thing to do as we're facing continuing cuts in local government aid, and to do that appropriate, sustainable planning for our economic future, is to take a look at, you know, maybe a separate taxing authority that includes those communities around Duluth that are heavy users of those services. Maybe the creation of a regional commission. I know that this topic has been broached at the legislative level. I interned in the legislature a couple years ago, and we were talking about this then. And it's a topic that I'm sure we're going to hear more discussion on. So yes, I would support that.
Thank you. Gary.
That's a really good question, and to responsibly answer it, I would say we have professional legal advice that would tell us if such a thing is even legal in this state. And quite frankly, I can't answer it informed and honestly because I don't know what Minnesota law would allow or would not allow. And to project out and say, well, I would do this or that, I don't know what the law is if we could do that. I know years ago, and I don't remember the way it was, but it was a few mayors ago, there was an exploration, something to do with out-of-towners doing something in town, and it was found it was illegal. And I don't remember what that was all in detail enough to talk about it, but I don't know if we can legally charge a fee to somebody just because you don't live in Duluth, because we go back to a sense of place and a sense of being an inviting community and feeling like I'm an outsider and not welcome there. It's a double-edged sword. Can we legally do it? I'd be willing to find out what the attorneys could tell us. The other side is, do we want to make people feel not welcome?
Thank you. Linda.
My understanding is that it is not legal with respect to libraries, and that I believe last legislative session, Senator Reinert introduced a bill to change that, and the bill failed. It didn't get very far. And perhaps I would be interested in supporting changing the law, but this is what has happened because they've cut our LGA, because Duluth is a regional center, and that LGA, that local government aid, is what comes to us and other regional centers to support people who live outside of our region to be able to use our services. I'd want them to still be able to use the services, but obviously it will be a question that we'll be faced with, because it comes down to the money, and how are you going to either cut the services or raise the revenues.
And thank you.
Yes, I like the tangibility of this question, very specific. If it's legal, all options are on the table for me in making that determination. However, again, a counselor is one person of 9, and the city is one of many regional partners. So one of the first things that I would do is have a very, very candid conversation with our regional partners of Hermantown and Proctor to say, we know that 28% of our users don't live here. We know that you enjoy the amenities of the city, and we know that you enjoy your own sets of amenities. But it is time to talk a little bit about how we can kind of co-invest in some of those strategies. There are models to do this that have been done in other places, and I think we can look to some of that. And then, you know, there is the talk about the Regional Taxing Authority, and I think part of that employment tax is part of what that's called when you actually live somewhere else and drive in. But there are very specific initiatives I think you could do around just library users in general that are using our regional system, even though they don't live in our city.
Thank you. At this time, we will ask each candidate to give a 1-minute closing statement, and we will be starting with Chad.
Okay, well, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming here tonight one more time. I'm not going to rehash everything I said. You've been here the whole time. You know where we all stand. I'm just going to remind you that November 8th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., polls are open. You know, Duluth prides itself on great voter turnouts, and the primary turnout wasn't so great. I'd really encourage everybody to get out November 8th, no matter who you're going to vote for. We hopefully can get our numbers back up to where they usually are. And thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Next will be Jackie.
Thank you. Okay. It's been a pleasure to be here and participate in this forum. One of the most personal things I can ask you for is your vote. And so I think it's really important, you know, as we look toward November 8th, is I want to have the opportunity to personally talk to each and every one of you as much as possible. I'll make sure after we're done here that you have my personal contact information. I'm spending a lot of time on the phones, talking to people and knocking on doors on the weekends. That's my favorite part of the campaign. I will assure you that I will continue to bring a balanced approach to my work on the council, and I will continue to work very hard to represent the people of the 4th District. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege, and I serve at the pleasure of the residents of the 4th District. I am a public servant as opposed to a politician, and so I would like to continue my service. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
I would like to thank everyone for coming here and caring enough about your community to come and listen and hear what we all have to say. It's important for you to be informed. I've demonstrated for a number of years my willingness to work for you in any capacity I've been in. I've attended meetings that I've been asked to go to or not asked to go to. I visit you at your doors and I listen to you. And one of the great things I found is going door to door. I'll see people at forums that wouldn't speak up, that strongly didn't agree with what was going on at the forums. And I always think that personal communication is the important thing to really sense what people are thinking. And during my elected experience, both on the school board and the city council, I always advocated strongly for what the residents said, not what a specific group was pushing, because I found that we all live in our neighborhoods and that's the life we have to live, and it's important to bring that voice to the city council so the city knows what you're experiencing and thinking. And thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you. Linda.
Well, to echo what both Jackie and Gary have said, thank you. Thank you very much for having us here, for coming out tonight. It's my first time I have run for elected office, and there is that moment when I am walking up someone's front stairs and getting ready to knock that I think, oh my gosh, maybe they'll tell me to go away, maybe they won't open their door, and that has not been my experience at all. People have been absolutely wonderful to talk with me about issues and to give me an opinion of something. And so I thank you for your questions. I hope you will indeed come out, just as Chad says, on November 8th and vote an important election, even though it's a quieter election and an off year, an important referendum on parks, and of course also there's a school board referendum as well. So please do come out, and I hope certainly that you'll consider me in the voting booth. Thank you.
Emily.
Well, my oldest son is 11. He just turned 11, and just the other day he said to me, "Mommy, we don't do things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard." And I was struck that he knew that, and it fit where this race is at. I want to thank everyone for running. This is very hard to be a candidate. You don't do this work because it's fun and because it's easy. It's a journey. You learn, you're challenged, you grow. You do it because you feel like you have something authentic to offer the conversation. I'm ready to do this work. I'm excited to do this work. I've been living here for 20 years. I've been participating in our community with you in a variety of ways. I'm asking for your vote November 8th for the at-large seat, and you can find further information about our campaign at our website, which is larsonforduluth.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, I've got a phone number. I'd love to talk with you more. Thank you so much for taking tonight to be here.
Thank you. And Tim.
Well, it's really a privilege to allow me to address you all tonight. For anybody that's ever followed any of the letters to the editor that I've written over the years, I have a deep respect for our founding fathers, and just for the opportunity that we even have to meet here tonight. In some countries, this just wouldn't even go on, to have people openly express their opinions and share it with others. I don't have a lot of signs all over town because I don't have a huge organization backing me, but if you come over to my house, I live in Gary, New Duluth, my grandchildren made me one. It's 2 George Pine Circle. And then my wife made me one and put it across the street. So we got 2 signs over where I live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes our 4th District at-large candidate forum. We hope that this program has helped you learn more about the candidates and their positions on the issues that are important to you, so that you can make an informed choice at the polls on Election Day. This forum was recorded in its entirety and may be viewed at the League of Women Voters website, lwvduluth.org. At lwvduluth.org, you will also find additional ways to engage in the issues that affect you. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong. As a League of Women Voter member, I have the opportunity to contribute to a leadership role such as this one that has a great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning more about how you can make a similar impact, I would encourage you to pick up some League information or to talk to any of the League members that are here tonight. Thank you for coming, and remember to vote for the candidate of your choice on Election Day, November 8th. And now let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you all for coming.